Swamiji, yes, health is wealth, and it's number one for happiness. And the number two needs to be relationship with family and friends, and then everything else. We do not select our blood relatives. If some of them are too negative and jealous, what can we do?
Okay. So thank you very much for this wonderful question and wonderful remark. Yes, health is wealth. That is, say, the first thing. And yes, a big part of our well-being in life is dependent on our good relationships with others, with the world at large, and definitely our closest relationships. They have a tremendous impact on our mental state. And like mentioned, we do not choose where we are born to, into which family and our relatives. And sometimes these relationships can be a bit challenging. Sometimes there could be different conflicts that can arise. And definitely that will have a lot of an effect on us, no doubt. It is one of our greatest challenges is to be able to manage relationships. Now, one thing that we have to keep in mind that our well-being is dependent on what goes on inside of us. Depends on our own emotions, on our own thoughts. Of course, our thoughts and emotions are triggered and impacted by how we interact with the world. But with the yogic training, all the different yogic practices and meditation, we become gradually more and more skilled in managing our own emotions and thoughts, meaning that we may be faced with challenging situations outside, but we're able to maintain our balance of mind, we're able to maintain our compassion, we're able to forgive, we're able to maintain a peace and joy, even though our situation around us may be challenging. Now, with family members, definitely it will have an effect on us, but with regular practice on all its different levels, we will be more skilled in dealing with it. Now, the main thing is that as we are able to stay more conscious, as we are able to stay more centered, we will be able also to support our family members and friends better. So even they may be in a negative state, maybe they're not practicing as you, maybe there's different issues that they're struggling with, but by us being able to maintain our center, by us being able to maintain our peace, we will be able to be more of a source to support them to also find that peace. But everybody eventually has to do it for themselves. We cannot change a person's mind. We can only be a source of peace and positivity. Eventually, people have to work on themselves. But definitely, with practice, we can be remain joyful and peaceful even in the difficult situations, even in difficult relationships. But it requires more practice. It requires more practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji. The next question. Um, is it possible to have our Kundalini awakened through yoga practice?
So, a very important question. For those of you, the question is if the Kundalini can be awakened for yoga. So, for those of you who are not familiar, Kundalini means the serpent power. And the yogis explain that this is a dormant spiritual energy that is located within the base of the spine, and that ultimately, through the different spiritual practices, the spiritual seeker or the yogi awakens that energy and raises that energy up to the higher psychic centers, and as a result of that experiences higher states of consciousness. And in order to be able to perceive the most subtle aspects of reality, in order to be able to perceive one's true nature, which according to the yogic teachings is of bliss absolute, that dormant energy has to be awakened. Otherwise, it's not really possible to enter into the deeper states of meditation. So many of the yogic practices are about awakening this energy. So, yes, there are yoga practices that can awaken this energy. What we generally teach is not those practices. The awakening of the Kundalini, according to our tradition, is something that has to be done under a guidance of an able teacher. This is a very sacred practice to awaken the Kundalini, very sacred, very special, and the practitioner has to be ready for it. Swami Vishnu used to say it's a little bit like walking with a chainsaw. Chainsaw is a very good tool, but you need to know how to use it, otherwise you might get hurt. So in the same way, this energy is very much needed for the spiritual seeker for achieving the higher states of consciousness, but it requires close guidance by an able teacher to be able to do it correctly and properly. So yes, yoga can awaken the Kundalini. It's part of the reasons why yoga is there. But the practices that in our tradition we share and teach to the public are not practices that are meant to do that. Those are practices, advanced and sacred practices that really require a lot of preparation and personal guidance.
Thank you, Swamiji. We have some more questions, but there's something that I would like to do is to invite Kevin. He's our youth ambassador, and he runs our youth program. He's a college student studying biology and nutrition, and of course he's does a lot of research on diet, and he's inculcating that among the youth. So we were very keen to hear from him his perception on some of your messages, and he would like to ask a question. So over to you, Kevin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Hi, Swami. My question to you would be, what is the best way to incorporate, especially working with youth and, programming for youth, what is the biggest message that you would have to someone who would be my age or younger, in this case, ages 12 and up, on how to open themselves up to these kinds of practices and to incorporate this type of mindfulness into their lives?
Very good question. Thank you, Kevin. And I can share with you that in our tradition, back already since the 1970s, one of the important works of our ashrams has been to host kids camps, teen camps, family programs, all because of the great importance at the young age to start cultivating healthy habits, to learn principles for healthy and positive living. As we know, in ancient times, yoga was practiced in what's called the Gurukula, where young people would go to an ashram and study all these principles as part of their regular education. Now, in these days, I would say that it really very much depends within the settings that we're working and the particular age group that we're teaching. Each age group will be a little bit different of how they would connect with the teaching. But the main way would be to give some experience. You see, yoga really works when people experience the benefits for themselves. So especially with the younger age, by certain practice of yoga, of some breathing, they will experience the value in it. Meaning, maybe if you just talk about it, that will not necessarily always inspire everyone at the younger age. But when a person, even a younger age, actually experience the peace that comes, the sense of wellness and ease that comes, then it will be something that a person will be inclined to do more and more. So I would say mostly by introducing some types of practices of yoga and pranayama, and how to practice depends on the group. But I would say a little bit less on the theory and more giving more of a direct experience with exercises. And then once a person sees, wow, this, I really feel good from it, even at a young age, a person will be inclined to come back to it again and again.
There is a related question. There's a related question. To what you said, what you just inferred. So, of course, this is Bala, and he says that thank you, Swamiji, so much for your presentation. Any advice for a working person like me on how to be disciplined on a daily basis to practice yoga, which makes a lot of sense?
Yes, so thank you very much, Balaji, for bringing up this is a very important point. Ultimately, the most essential thing about yoga is that we practice it. Only then it works. Only then it gives us benefits. And for most of us, we have a very busy schedule, very busy life. So, how do we actually gain benefits from yoga? So, the yogis say yes, we have to be practical about it. And the way to do it is to think about our daily routine, to think already, to sit and think, okay, what time do I usually wake up? What time do I need to start engaging with work? What is my responsibility, family commitments, social commitments? So really be clear, to write it down, my current daily schedule and routine and commitments. Then to look at it and to see where we can incorporate, even if it begins with a 5 minutes. 5 minutes is better than no minutes, or 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. We start with something that is realistic for us, and we plan it into our daily routine. Ideally, uh, in the morning before we start the day. This will give us a good start to the day on a positive note, and there's a greater possibility that we actually get it done. As we wait later in the day, we get more tired, more distracted. So, if we want to really ensure that we do something, it's best to do it as soon as we can, as after waking up or taking a shower and then doing the meditation and the yoga practice. So we have to realistically plan. And again, better to do 10 minutes than no minutes. And we plan a time. And then what is very beneficial is to use some type of a diary. We call it a spiritual diary, where every night we can check off to see, did I follow my resolution? I had a resolution, a plan to do 10 minutes of meditation every morning. Then at Monday night, I check, did I do it or I didn't do it? What will happen? Let's say Monday I didn't do it. Tuesday I didn't do it. By Wednesday we'll say, okay, I have to get serious. I said I really want to do meditation every day. Let me do the meditation tomorrow. So that kind of a accountability is going to help us develop the habit of start practicing. So I would say to plan a routine, and then to you have some type of a form that will help us to maintain accountability on our resolutions.
The next question is, if one gets the feeling that some person or persons are looking at me and thinking negatively of me, how to get rid of such thoughts and what practices to follow?
Okay. So thank you very much. That's a very good question. What to do when we get the feeling of somebody thinking negative of us, and that is definitely a common, universal experience. It is inevitable for every human being to have some people thinking negative of them at one point or the other, and so how do we manage that? First of all, it very much depends what to do in terms of the settings. Who is the person, and in which setting we are at that time when we're experiencing it. The main thing, first of all, is to maintain our own positive thinking. And there is many different techniques of how to maintain positive thinking, how to overcome our own restlessness, how to overcome our agitation. And in yoga, one of the main principles is what's called in Sanskrit pratipaksha bhavana, which means the cultivation of the opposite, where if we start, let's say, feeling agitation, we start mentally affirming peace in our mind, repeating peace in our mind to shift the thoughts of agitation. Or if we feel angry, we start affirming within our mind and experiencing patience. We repeat patience within our mind. This is the method of pratipaksha bhavana, thinking about the opposite, cultivating the opposite. Now, besides that, the yogis also many times encourage the usage of mantras. Mantras are sacred sounds. Mantra literally means that which protects the mind. Protects the mind from what? From our own negative thinking. So as we repeat mantras, that's a way to, it creates like a psychic armor. So we're not as much impacted by negative thoughts around us and from our own negative thoughts. It elevates the mind. So repetition of mantras will help. Then it is a matter of training. You see, the more that we practice meditation, the more that we practice yoga, we become more and more skilled in dealing with whatever negative thoughts are there. And we become more aware of the negative thoughts. The biggest problem with negative thinking is lack of awareness. You see, when we catch the thoughts quite quickly, it's relatively easy to shift them. Like if a little bit of annoyance is there in the mind, relatively easy we can redirect the mind in a different direction. But when we're not really aware and the thoughts accumulate, they generate a great force. And then it becomes very emotional. Then it's quite difficult to shift our mind in a different direction. This is why meditation is so important, because meditation cultivates this awareness of what is going on in our mind. So meditation brings more awareness, and meditation also gives us this inner strength to direct our mind in a certain way. So when we meditate daily, we become more aware of our mind and we become more skilled in telling the mind where to go. And positive thinking is based on that. Recognizing the negative thoughts and then having the inner strength and the skill to tell the mind, this anger is not really useful for me. Better for me to go in the direction of joy. These worries and fears are not really valuable for me. It's better for me to have confidence. It's better for me to have faith. So regular meditation practice is the main thing that will make us more skilled in positive thinking, because it increases awareness and it increases the willpower to shift the mind in the direction that we choose. So that will be the way to deal with it.
Thank you. We are getting close to the end of this session, so we'll take up two questions. So the first question is, um, sometimes people fall asleep during yoga nidra or meditation because they become too relaxed. How it can be avoided?
Okay, so wonderful question about falling asleep in yoga nidra or in meditation. Many times a person falls asleep, especially in the practice of yoga nidra, while lying on the back, just because there is a tiredness within the body and mind. The person does need that extra rest. The body can be sometimes exhausted. The body has been dealing with a lot of stress, and then we do fall asleep. And when we are relaxing in our back, it is not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing if we do fall asleep. That's a sign that we actually needed it. Now, when we sit for meditation and if we fall asleep, that's a little bit of a different story. That's definitely a sign that there is more what we call in Sanskrit tamas, or sluggishness within the system. And in order to avoid that, different things can be done. First of all, the yogis recommend to take a shower before we practice. If we take a shower, that will remove a lot of the lethargy from the system. We will be more alert and fresh. Then the yogis also recommend to practice meditation or the yoga nidra on an empty stomach. When there is no digestion going on, we'll have more energy, we will be more alert. Then also the yogis recommend to practice some pranayama, breathing exercises, especially several rounds of vigorous kapalabhati will energize the body, will increase the level of oxygen, we will become much more alert and ready for meditation. Swami Shivananda also recommends even to practice the headstand. If somebody is comfortable and the headstand is suitable for them, the headstand will increase the amount of blood coming down to the brain and make us much more alert and ready for meditation. So these different yogic practices will definitely help us to practice meditation and remain very alert and focused and energized.
Thank you. And we'll have the last question now, Swamiji, for you. This is from Dhabal Shah, who is also in the panel for the last session that we had on the support group. And he had actually got exposed to meditation in his childhood. And he's also familiar with Swami Sivananda and some of his work. And he tells me that he's almost ready to pack up and go to Bahamas as soon as he's able to. So he has a question for you, and I would let him, say that. Over to you, Dhaval.
Namaste, Swamiji. What a fantastic lecture you gave, and your 5 points. We all could learn from that, I'm sure. And I look forward to coming to Bahamas soon. My question was about you. I wanted to just know what inspired you to become a yogi, and we all can learn from that experience also as to how did the transformation take place, and whatever you want to share.
Okay, well, thank you, Davalji, for your very kind words. And we are very much waiting to welcome you here in the Bahamas. With a great joy. And yes, thank you for asking. I'll be happy to share as much as I can. In just a few words. Basically, I would say from a young age, especially while in high school and around that age, was a lot of thoughts about, I would say, the meaning of life and the purpose of life, and a lot of doubts about what to do with my life. And I remember many times thinking to maybe take this path of maybe being a doctor, or having this path of working in the business, or so many different ideas I had of what I would do. But one thing was ever always troubling my mind. I always felt that no matter what I do, still the same mind will be there. Still, I may accomplish this, achieve that, and still I could envision that some dissatisfaction is not going to leave me, even if I achieve or accomplish that. So I was always seeking for what is it that is really going to make me happy? What is really going to make me peaceful? And after the military service in Israel, like many Israelis, I very quickly found myself in India. And while I was in India and exposed to the practice of meditation, I went on a meditation retreat, and there it became very evident to me in this practice of meditation. It suddenly became very clear what is going to make me happy. And I felt that only by helping others to be happy, I will be happy. And I saw from this practice of meditation that this is the main way, for me at least, it became very evident as the main way to be happy. That only by learning how to manage one's thoughts, manage one's emotions, one can be fully satisfied with his or her life by learning how to deal with the mind. And it suddenly, this strong aspiration and inspiration took over me, where I knew that this is what I'm supposed to do, to share meditation with others. I didn't know how it's going to take place, where, and in which means. I knew that I didn't want to worry about money. I didn't want to worry about where I'm going to be living. I just wanted to be able to be free and share these teachings that felt so inspired that will help everyone, because it helped me so much. When I practiced meditation for the first time, I was totally taken by it, of how much uh, clarity, how much insights were coming about my own mind. Uh, and it was this great sense of peace. So that's really what inspired me to take on this journey. I didn't know in which facet, where I would be, and how I would do it, but that understanding that by helping others, I will be happy. And I felt that the best way I could help is by sharing people techniques of finding peace, of finding inner peace and happiness. So that's how I came about this path. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Swamiji. I think it was heartwarming and inspiring to have you. I know it's getting late for you, but we are really, really enchanted by everything that you covered today. So, having said that, enjoy the rest of the evening, and wonderful once again to have you, Swamiji. And thanks to all the participants and everybody who made this program happen today. Thank you. Namaste.